I want to bring Rick Smith on from
All right.
Axon. So let's do that, and let's get me.
All right. All right, Rick, can you hear me?
I can. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I know we have a hard stop at 11. You have an exciting company. Where are you based out of?
So right now I'm living in Florida. The company's based out of Scottsdale, and we've got offices, in about 10 cities around the world. But with the pandemic, we discovered, you can work from anywhere, and you can get up and go to work in your gym clothes. It's great.
Exactly. I'll be in Aventura next week. You know where that is? Like North Miami.
Oh yeah.
So it's a little warmer over there.
For sure.
Warmer. Yes. So your company is, I mean, I know you're not going to talk stock, but the company's been performing well. The story's there, and people kept requesting to hear from you. They've been following this company, and so what we do in the Raz Report, we take it back a little bit. And so, just how did you get your start? And we'll get to your company Axon in a little bit, but how did you get your start?
So if I go way back, my dad was a serial entrepreneur when I was growing up, and that means you typically fail more than you succeed. So we ended up moving around a lot. He'd start a business, it would fail. He'd start another one, or he'd go get a job in between. But the one thing I noticed is he was always happier when he was doing something he loved, doing a startup, than he was even when he was making more money in jobs at bigger companies. So then when I was in college, or actually grad school, two of my high school football teammates were shot and killed in the parking lot of the Hyatt Regency in Scottsdale, Arizona. And it just was really shocking to me that, gun violence is so pervasive. It's not just something that happens, in some faraway city, in even these very quaint resort suburbs. You could get shot and killed at altercation from a traffic light. And I became just very interested and passionate about gun violence as a problem, and decided entrepreneurship.
Wait, were you in school back then when that happened?
I was just finishing grad school.
Crazy. Okay.
Yeah. And so for me, the sort of aha moment was, look, lots of people have tried to solve violence through political groups, right? Whether it's handgun control or pro-Second Amendment. And I sort of concluded that politics isn't the way you solve really big problems. You do it through invention. And if we had Captain Kirk's phaser from Star Trek, then people who would shoot bullets at each other anymore? And with that simple insight, I found a NASA scientist had invented this thing called the taser back in the late 1960s. And I found he lived about an hour from my parents. Next thing I know, at 23 years old, I'm knocking on his door. He was 73, and I convinced him to give it another shot. And we started a company in his garage. We were a very odd couple to bring the taser back to life.
Wow. So how'd you find this person that made that technology, I guess?
Well, through a patent search, I was at the ASU library. This is before the internet, right? Back in 1993. And I'm just looking up patents and reading everything I could about non-lethal weapons. And I discovered in one of the patents that the inventor of the taser lived in Tucson, Arizona. And so I dialed 411. Now, for some of your viewers, before Google, that's how you found people. You would call the phone company and ask for their number. And I got it. And I just called them out of the blue.
That is an amazing story. You were how old about then, though?
I was 23.
So when I was 16, this is about you, not about me. And I was like 15 or 14. I couldn't understand why you had to be home at a set time to watch a TV show. And it was MacGyver, and I was late because of basketball practice. So I started going to the library and researching the patent database. My dad said, stop talking about it. And there was no patent for recording digital television. I started the process and then didn't follow through like you. So amazing. Amazing story. So that's awesome. So that's how it started. So you found this guy in Arizona, but you weren't the technology guy. I mean, you're like, so how'd you get him to believe in you?
So, yeah, that's a good question. I think he was just at a point in life, he was 73 years old. He had started companies twice to go after this, and they had both failed for a variety of reasons. And he did not say yes at first. It took me about 3 weeks to convince him. He was out trying to raise money, but his pitch was pretty awful, to be honest. He was a 73-year-old guy who had done this exact same business plan twice, and it had failed. And his pitch was that he was trying to raise $2 million and he was going to take $1 million and basically retire and then leave $1 million in the company for somebody else to figure it out. And, candidly looking at that, I realized, all right, nobody is going to invest in this. And I was able to bring together $100,000 from friends and family. And hey, it was something, it was a start. And then as I got to know him, actually, I discovered as well, he actually wasn't that interested in owning any stock in the company. He was kind of skeptical and pretty jaded about business. He just wanted a very clear patent royalty, which actually made it fairly easy once I understood his motivations. We actually gave him 5% of the company because I wanted him to have some stock, but he literally just wanted the security of knowing if the product sold, he would get $2 a unit in royalties, plus some fixed minimum royalties that would, give him some money to live on. And cool, we were able to put that together.
Did he keep the 5%?
He did not. He did not. We ultimately ended up in a patent dispute with him, and there's another company that still made the taser for police from the old days. And as part of the overall settlement, he was by that time like 75, 76. He just wanted to get bought out. And so we basically paid him in cash, bought out the patents, and everybody went their separate ways.
I mean, the 5% seems like a nice added bonus for him. Why would he be upset? You gave him that like out of being kind, right? And you didn't have to, and that wasn't enough, I guess.
I don't blame him. He was pretty late in life, and it was pretty clear this was going to take longer than any of us hoped. And so I think when he said, "Hey, look, I'd rather you just buy me out," than he was losing a little bit of faith that we were going to execute. We were having some divergent opinions, and so it just worked out best to write a check.
Well, it's been an unbelievable growth story. Now, you went from, I know you went to grad school. You went from like Harvard, University of Chicago, to then public safety. When you did those trips, were you working in banking in any of those things, like before you got to this public safety thing?
No. It was actually pretty interesting. I would say the most important decision of my life was when I was at University of Chicago in grad school, and I decided not to interview for a job because I had started working. I had a class on entrepreneurship. For the class project, I did the business plan that would become Taser. And I fell in love with the concept as I was researching it. And they had the spring recruiting and going on. And I basically went up and I sat at the top of the John Hancock Tower drinking a Jack Daniels and debating about, what I wanted to do with my life. And I said, if I interview for a job, I just might get an offer. And then I'm going to have to explain to my parents why I'm turning down this great job offer to go pursue this crazy business idea that I'm going to go make the phaser happen. And so for me, it was just about focus, right? I don't want to get distracted. If I start investing in job interviews, that creates momentum in that direction. So I decided I'm going to go home. I'm going to live with my parents for the next year. We'll raise some money from friends and family, and we'll give it a shot. And if it fails, I'll go interview for a job in the next cycle a year later.
I love it because you could have gone, I'm going to call it the easier way because there's a path to find. And you chose to go the path not to find, and your parents were probably like, come on, what are you doing? And you did it, right?
Well, my dad was really supportive because he's a kind of a crazy serial entrepreneur. So he was cheering the whole way. My mom thought we were both nuts. And it's actually pretty funny. When we were first starting the business, some of my old Harvard buddies that were working in investment banking, making for what the time in your early 20s was big money, they came out to see me on a road trip, and they filmed this on video, and they would talk to me in the room like, hey, tell us about the business. Like they're really interested. Then when I would leave to go get a prop or bring something in, they would make fun out of me like crazy. And then I'd come back in, they'd get all serious again. And then they showed me the tape later, and it was hysterical. And of course we all still joke about it now that for all the ribbing they gave me for this stupid, crazy idea, it worked out okay.
Right. I mean, just a little bit. So when you started this in the 90s, and this is like when Rodney King happened, was that part of this? Like seeing like, how can we help police be more innovative with products, et cetera?
Actually, initially we had no focus on police. We were going after the consumer market. So the Taser, I mentioned this inventor had created 2 previous companies. One of them was still around. It was really small, and they were still selling to police. Our thesis was, if we could redesign the taser to be a non-firearm, that would make it easier to sell it to the public. The original taser was classified basically it was a gun that didn't look like a gun, and that's damn near illegal. It's like selling a sawed-off shotgun or a mortar or a grenade launcher. And so they could only sell them to police. We re-engineered it to sell to the public. But over the next 7 years, the public was super skeptical. And they would say things like, well, what about Rodney King, right? He was shot with a taser and it didn't work. And it turns out they were right. The early taser was underpowered. Now, when I asked the inventor about Rodney King, he said, oh, that's because the batteries weren't charged. Well, sometimes inventors look at their inventions the way parents do with their children, right? You don't see the flaws and you kind of make excuses. And it turned out it wasn't the batteries were dead. The early tasers didn't have enough power to stop a big aggressive person like Rodney King was in the moment. And of course, it failed and they went to their batons with catastrophic consequences. So we only pivoted to go into law enforcement because we felt, you know what, we've got to prove to the world this thing works. We've got to overcome the Rodney King story. And we'll only do that if police really start using this, because we actually increased the power and made it work a lot better. And we had to prove it with the police before we thought consumers would ever buy it.
Got it. Okay. So it was changing the business a little bit. You weren't even thinking of it at first. And then now it's like to me, one of the reasons why I like the company so much, I think every police station, every police precinct has to be thinking about, how do we end violence without, fatalities? That's it. Like, how do we stop violence without fatalities? Like, taking a gun out needs to be a thing of the past. Obviously, it can't be if someone has a gun in response.
Well, not yet. But, I would challenge, if you had Captain Kirk's phaser and it was 100% reliable, even if the other guy had a gun, you would take it out, not because you want to save the other guy's life, but because that Kirk's phaser would be faster and more effective at stopping the threat. And so I actually recently wrote a book, shamelessly marketed behind me here, The End of Killing, where we've come out and we've said, look, by 2030, we will bring out a non-lethal weapon.
Can you grab the book and show it closer? Let's make it more shameless for us.
Perfect.
All right, the End of Killing. All right, yeah. So wait, in the book you said that we will come out with something that's not deadly lethal, is what you're saying?
We will develop a taser-like weapon by the end of this decade. We took a little inspiration from John Kennedy, right? Before this decade is out, we will launch a non-lethal weapon that will outperform a 9mm. And you will not have to kill anyone anymore if we hit that goal.
Do you do any more imitations?
Not that I should do publicly. I do a little bit of Yoda now and then, but
you're a Star Wars guy.
Yeah, I am, absolutely.
Yeah. So no, that's an amazing goal. I mean, that would be, that'd be everything. Now I have to jump around for a second. So where I started like paying attention to you guys even more, and why I got in the stock, was when I heard your advertisements on Barstool. Do you ever Barstool Portnoy?
Oh yeah.
So,
I know him personally, but obviously it's amazing what they've done.
Yeah, I had him on our show, on this exact show. He was the 2 guests ago. We did that, or 3 guests ago. We did like a 2-hour thing, and he was just in Detroit for the last week. But I know they talk about the non-lethal things that you guys have, but it's not available in every state. Can you talk about the thing that Dave is talking about with your product and what states it's available, just so the listeners can hear about that?
Yeah, so we do make consumer taser weapons. In fact, I would argue it's a really great choice for home defense, because in reality, and I bought my dad a gun for his birthday one year, so I certainly understand the allure of guns, but on a practical basis, in the middle of the night, if you wake up and you hear a sound, you've got to make a life or death decision when you are not at your best, right? You're just waking up, et cetera. And so the idea of having a taser in the house, even for people who have a gun, it's a great weapon of first resort, because if you make a mistake, or if you leave it more accessible and you have a suicidal teenager, you can do all the things that can go wrong. Having a non-lethal weapon that can incapacitate someone gives you the chance to protect yourself, and yet you can recover from mistakes in a way that you can't. There's lethality is final. And again, many of our customers are gun owners, and they just keep the taser as their first line of defense, or to keep in their vehicle. In many states, you can't keep a gun in your car but you can't keep the taser in your vehicle. And I think we're now legal in all 50 states. There might be one that's left. I should have checked before I came on the show, but they've pretty much all been rolling back. There was a challenge to the state of Massachusetts under the Second Amendment that you have the right to bear arms. And it doesn't say only firearms, it says arms. And so stun guns and tasers, et cetera, have largely fallen under the Second Amendment, which has rolled back virtually all the states that had restrictions. Now, what you might have to do, though, is check with your cities. There are still some cities that don't allow you to carry a taser outside your home, like I think Chicago is one of them.
But aren't there, like, the thing that Dave shows on the show, is it different than a taser, or what the thing that, do you know what I'm talking about? He has like a flashlight or something. Yep. See, I know.
Yeah, you're good. So
that's good product placement, right?
I love it. So Taser is actually our brand name. It's like Kleenex or Ford. So we have kind of two categories of weapons. We have the conducted energy weapons. These are the ones that shoot darts out, and that's what people typically associate with the Taser brand. Yep. And we do sell those for both police and consumers. Then we also have what we call a strike light, which is a flashlight with a very powerful pulse engine in it, but it does not shoot darts. And that one is more for like walking your dog. It's a really powerful deterrent. You're not going to shoot somebody at a distance and knock them down, but you can keep, it scares the heck out of dogs. My parents used to breed Doberman pinchers. And if you spark a strike light, those dogs will run for cover. Just the very sound of it is very primal. And it's a great deterrent. And of course, if somebody gets close, you can push them back with a very painful shock.
So you're saying with the flashlight, if someone comes close to like mug me, I do what? I press the button and it gives a shock?
Oh yeah, you just press the button. Well, first, you're going to get a very loud, bright spark. And most people are going to take a step back because just instinctively it goes to your core. I don't want to get hit with that. That's pretty intimidating. And if you hit them, it's going to shock the daylights out of them. But now it's going to basically just knock them back. If you really want to put somebody on the ground, like if they're going to be in your home and you want to knock them down and get out of there or call the police, in that case, you want to use one of our taser conducted energy weapons, the ones that shoot the darts out, because once that attaches, even as you fall down, we keep pumping electricity in and will paralyze you, for quite a period of time, for as long as you hold the button down.
Okay, and so wait, two more questions on this part. So on the flashlight one, if I had one here, if I practiced here on Spencer Israel, the guy that introduced the show, would he be like really upset with me? Like, would he be in pain? Like, what would it be like?
Oh yeah, it's quite a painful and disorienting shock. It's not something we recommend people play around with. Okay.
And then the taser that shoots the electric, thing that goes in you. I know when you shoot it, you used to be able to shoot just one shot, and then you couldn't use it anymore. Has that changed, or is it still like a one shot thing in case you miss?
We have 1-shot and 2-shot versions. Now, when I say a shot, that's 2 darts. So the 2-shot version has a total of 4 darts. And then the way it works, after you've shot it, it's still electrically live on the front. So you still have the touch stun capability if you've missed. And what we recommend you do actually is once you've fired it, if you're somewhere you can get to safety, you actually drop it and it will run for 30 seconds without you, ruining the subject's day. The guy on the receiving end after 30 seconds is going to be pretty worn out, and that gives you time to get out of there, get to safety, and then we replace it. You just send us a police report showing you used it to defend yourself.
And you replace it?
And we replace it, yep.
Okay.
We don't let you sit there, you're like, geez, do I worry about the cost of my taser, or do I worry about my safety? Like, hey, shoot it, let it do its job, and you get out of there.
Okay. So now your book, The End of Killing, how our newest technologies can solve humanity's oldest problems. So what's humanity's oldest problem?
Do we kill each other? I mean, it's like a dark stain whenever you read, poetry or literature or watch movies, right? The big self-critique of humanity is that we're these killer apes who do these awful, brutal things to each other. And we've just accepted that that's who we are, right? That, well, killing is part of society. But if you actually go back and look at there's a lot of good data on this. Steven Pinker, professor at Harvard, wrote a book called Better Angels of Our Nature, where he talks about the progress we've made. I mean, if you lived 300-400 years ago, the chance of you dying at the hands of another person killing you is about 500 times what the chances are now. I mean, the world used to be in a continuous state of violence. It was every man for himself, village would attack village, right? That doesn't happen anymore. We've created a much more stable world. We've seen a huge decrease in warfare, a huge decrease in homicide rates. And what I'm saying is, there's only these pockets now where we accept killing each other, like police shooting and killing somebody. And what most people don't realize is police are not authorized to shoot to kill, ever. That is not the intention. They are authorized to shoot to stop a threat. They're not a public executioner, but those two concepts are mixed together because right now, the only truly effective way to stop a threat is lethal force. And what I'm pointing out in my book is the moment that you separate those two concepts, if you could stop someone just as effectively without killing them, then there's no legal justification for why you would kill them.
So why are police shooting so much? Like, I mean, I'm thinking of the guy in the garage a few months ago when they didn't know what the heck was going on, and that guy died. There was no reason for him to have to die. He didn't have a gun. What's your take?
I would say it's my fault. We have not given them a technology that's reliable enough yet. The non-lethal weapons that exist today, I'm proud of the work we've done, but we're not done. The taser is maybe 85 to low 90 percentile effective. So if 10% of the time, if you miss with one of the darts or if they have really heavy clothing, it may not work. And if you're a police officer who's fearing for your life and you think the other guy has a gun, today when officers go in to any scene, if they don't know what they're up against, the thing in their hand will be a gun. And I actually support that because if it's my kid doing that job, my son, like when he was in Afghanistan, right, that is the thing that's most reliable. And it's our job as technologists to give them something just as reliable so that the thing in their hand is not an instrument that inflicts death. It's rather 100% effective incapacitator. And that's what we're working on. And we'll do that in the next few years.
How many people do you have working on this, like technology guys?
So we have about 2,000 people in the company total. Of the R&D team that's actually working on Taser, it's about maybe 60, 70 people.
Do you remember like 10 years ago when Taser stock was going up and down? Was it the same business? Because now it's Axon, but before that, was it the same company? I remember when you guys were like, I don't know, it was crazy, like 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah, 10, 15 years ago was super crazy. In fact, you obviously watched what happened with GameStop. I
was going to say GameStop, but I didn't want to bring it in, but yes.
Well, so part of what happened with us, we went from a startup in 2000. We went public in 2001. In 2004, we were the number one performing stock in the world.
Yes, you were.
We gotten up to a $2 billion market cap. Now, our company was also growing. It was tripling every year. So like if you actually look at the growth rate and the cash generation, the valuation was not as crazy as it may seem at first. But we had $1 billion short position come in 2004. And that's when all the craziness hit. In fact, I just wrote an op-ed on this or an article on Medium. All the negativity about Taser happened at the exact same time our short position topped $1 billion. And I can tell you, we had a very aggressive campaign of short sellers, instigating negative news stories, investigations, and ultimately my personal secretary was a mole who was sending information to short sellers who were then using it to manipulate the stock. And I can prove it because the New York Times disclosed that was their information source, was a short seller trafficking in internal company documents.
Holy shit.
It was crazy.
Okay? Holy shit. Like now we only have 6 minutes left. Your secretary was a mole. She was giving information out about you guys to short sellers. How did the short sellers get to her?
We actually think she recruited in specifically to do this job because she joined us only about 6 months before all hell broke loose.
And what happened to her?
Nothing. We actually went to, so I can only talk about this now because it's 15 years in the past. I'll tell you, when you're the public company or you're the CEO of a public company that's under a short attack and you end up under a government investigation as part of it, we had an SEC investigation. Every lawyer will tell you, do not go out and share what's actually happening because people will think you've lost your mind and it only plays into the negative narrative. So we did not go public with any of this until the last year, where now I'm sharing it because the world is paying attention to what short sellers can do to companies. And it's far enough in the rearview mirror. Look, I have no incentive. It's not a problem today, but it nearly killed us 15 years ago. It was crazy.
Do you remember who were some of the big short sellers back then?
No, here's the problem. And I've put out a call. We need some short seller regulation. I can't tell you who it was because short sellers can operate in complete darkness. To this day, if you take a sizable position in my stock, if you buy the stock, we know who you are and you have to register with the SEC. But you could take $1 billion short position in my company and nobody knows. You don't have to register anywhere. You could then go spend $20 million to hire PR firms, to send letters to investigators, to cause all sorts of trouble trying to burn the house down, and nobody knows even who you are. And to this day, I can't tell you who the $1 billion shorts were in 2004.
Oh my God. I mean, yes, I'm on the media side of it. I get these guys sending me stuff to write this stuff. Like I see it. And so this should be made out of a movie, because I remember that. And so you were the original GameStop in some respect.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with exactly what GameStop's gone through, but what we went through was a very focused, well-coordinated attempt to destroy our company when there was a $1 billion short position. And look, when I tell you my secretary was a mole, it's because she was uncovered by two prestigious investigative firms who brought him in, and they confronted her with the evidence that she had been the one who sent the SEC letter to the Arizona Republic. She pulled a resignation letter out of her pocket and walked out of the office, never to be seen again.
Holy cow. We got to find her, make a movie. My friend's a big producer in Hollywood. That'll be the next thing. So did you learn anything about yourself by writing this book? How long did it take you? Did you learn anything interesting about yourself writing the book?
Yeah. So the original book actually was going to be the taser story. We're going to talk about some of the short attacks and all that. We ended up going in a different direction and saying, you know what, let's focus on the future, on how we're going to do our mission to end killing. And the thing I would say is I've been really shocked at how positively it's been received by police, because there was some risk, right? If you read the disclaimers in my book, it says, look, this isn't from the company. This is me personally with my ideas for where I think we can go. But police officers have a very intimate relationship with their gun. It's their lifeline, right? This is the thing they rely upon to save them. And I wanted to make sure they didn't hear, look, I'm not talking about anybody taking your gun away. We want to give you something so good you never have to use it. And the outpouring of support from police has been, hey, man, watching what happens after you shoot and kill somebody. I mean, police suicides, career ending, you can end up in jail. And obviously, in the world we're in right now, that is a horrible situation to be in. So I've been just shocked at how much police have come out and said, you know what? If you can deliver against that promise, amen, we're with you.
Okay. No, that's awesome. Now we're like coming to the 11 o'clock. Again, his book is The End of Killing, How Our Newest Technology Can Solve Humanity's Oldest Problem. One of the questions I always ask, what was your worst or first job? Or you can answer both. Again, we're with Rick. What'd you say?
This is the only job I've ever had. I mean, I had a summer job once, but that doesn't really count.
Oh, yeah, it counts. It counts. Were you like a caddy? Were you a golfer? I mean, you were in Arizona, so I thought maybe you were like a golfer.
Yeah, I was. I was basically taking inventory of a company's assets and putting it all into a database. It was a super boring job.
That sounds kind of boring.
Yeah.
That's so. And the company, I mean, the stock is up, crazy amount of percent. And I know you're just executed and the price follows or what have you. I mean,
well, we took the taser business, and from that we built the body camera business. Because people worry about like what do cops do with a taser? Well, let's record it with a body camera, and then that created a huge software business to manage all the data. So the reason we're at a $12 billion market cap today is, in addition to the core taser business, we built a huge cloud software business.
The cloud software is how it lets you analyze the data basically, and what's videoed on the body cams, and it's like a monthly SaaS fee.
Yeah, exactly. It's a subscription service. It's sort of like YouTube for cops, where it's secure digital evidence management. We handle all their videos, share it. Without us, police are burning stuff on DVDs and CDs and sending it around in file folders. But we automate that whole process.
How long did you start that one?
We started that in 2009.
Beautiful. I mean, makes it a lot easier. I know we have to go. I just want to read a real quick. There's a Marine Corps infantry here. They said they could use your stuff when guarding checkpoints in Iraq and some other place I cannot pronounce, so I'm not going to try. And there's a bunch of officers saying how much they love using your stuff and the body cam stuff. The one person says, NCAL says you need to come up with body cam for personal use. I don't know how they would use that, but that was
I love the idea.
Yeah, I don't know. So no, appreciate you coming on, Rick. What a story, what a company, and forget even just what the stock's doing, but saving lives. Like at the end of the day, a bullet can kill someone, and they're never around the next day, and it's the worst. So I mean, It's just like keep making your tech.
For the Marine who wrote in, I'll tell you, stay tuned. The military is our next big target. Like, we want to get police to where they don't have to kill people. But if you think about the military, we're not fighting the old school wars. We're fighting, people that are hiding in in plain view. And when my son went to Afghanistan and all he had was an M16, you realize, I think our soldiers also need a broader range of capabilities. So stay tuned. We're coming to the military next.
All right, guys, get Rick's book. I'm sure you'll learn some life lessons in there too about how you built what you've built. And just thanks for coming on, and hopefully you'll come on again when you have something new to announce. And we try to tell the good stories, and that's about it. So appreciate you coming on.
All right. Thanks, Raz.
Thanks, man. Talk to you later. All right, guys, that was Rick Smith, the CEO of Axon, on the Raz Report today.